Hello, and welcome to the Hall of Fame. Of the 3,000 people he captured, Bass Reeves only killed 14 of them. This was a big deal in the Wild West, where most marshals weren't much better than the people they chased. But Reeves believed in using his wits rather than his weapons to catch criminals, and that is why Bass Reeves should be welcomed into the Hall of Fame. Bass was born to slavery in Arkansas. When he was a teenager, his owner took him to fight in the Civil War. Details are sketchy, but he managed to slip over the border to Oklahoma. There he gained a reputation as a skilled marksman. The United States took notice and made him deputy marshal. Bass was extremely committed to his job. One time he walked 28 miles over a marathon to ambush some outlaws. He was also pretty smart. Playing dead and using disguises were only a few of his tricks. He was never bribed and often preached to criminals. And in the dying words of James Webb, one of the few outlaws he killed, he was a brave, brave man. Bass Reeves was a legendary lawman. He believed in using peace and smarts to catch criminals. He made Oklahoma a safer place, and as a result, it became a state in 1907. And that is why Bass Reeves should be welcomed into the Hall of Fame.
I'm Dr. Seuss. When it comes to making beloved children's books, he is an expert. He wrote and illustrated over 60 children's books and changed the way children read around the world. Theodore Seuss Giesel, or Dr. Seuss, has sold over 222 million copies of his books and has brought the love of reading to so many people. He helped businesses sell their products. He joined the United States Army Motion Picture Unit, and he introduced us to one of the most magnificent characters of all time. Dr. Seuss has done plenty of amazing achievements, and that is why he should be nominated in the Hall of Fame. He was born in 1904 in Springfield, Massachusetts. As a child, Ted would draw silly animals on the walls of a bedroom and come up with names for them. He attended Dartmouth College in Oxford in England. Before Ted started writing and illustrating books, he was known for his cartoons on many different magazines like Saturday Evening Post and Judge. While Ted and his wife Helen were on a trip to Europe, Ted found the inspiration to write his first book, What I Saw on Mulberry Street. This book became such a success that inspired Ted to create other books, like 500 Hats of Bartholomew Cobbins and 14 Hats and an Egg. Other books he published over the years included The Cat in the Hat, How to Grinch Stole Christmas, and Lorax. In conclusion, Dr. Seuss was an inspiration to many people around the world. People love his books because of the funny characters and heartwarming messages. Dr. Seuss is one of the most beloved authors and illustrators of all time.
None of us know what we are capable of until we are tested, said Elizabeth Blackwell. Elizabeth Blackwell was the first woman to earn a medical degree. Blackwell, also known as Bessie, was born in the early 1800s. Her first ever job was becoming a teacher, teaching French, art, and more. Unfortunately, she did not enjoy teaching and decided to become a doctor. When she decided to become a doctor, she had many obstacles along her way. One of her obstacles were having an artificial eye in the left one, but that did not stop her. She did her goal, and she also achieved it. She opened an office in New York City, and in conclusion, Elizabeth Blackwell was the first woman to earn a medical degree.
Welcome. Let me tell you about my Hall of Fame nominee, Moses. A quote from Moses, "Fear not, the Lord shall fight for you, and you will never see the Egyptians again." This is when Moses tells the Israelites that he's guiding them to freedom. The Israelites are a big group of people that were enslaved by the Egyptian king. The Egyptian king watched as the Israelites grew in number and feared that one day they would grow so large that they'd join with one of Egypt's enemies and overthrow his kingdom. Because of this, any boy babies were to be drowned in the Nile River. Moses' mother was afraid that he'd be drowned like the rest, so she sent him away in a small boat, hoping that he would be safe. The princess of Egypt found him and took him in as her son. He became the prince of Egypt. But Moses knew his true family were Israelite slaves. One day, God spoke to Moses through a bush that was a mysterious bush on fire. God told Moses that he would be the one to free the Israelites from slavery. Moses did as God said and freed the Israelites. Moses is most known for splitting the Red Sea. In my opinion, I think he's persistent, strong, blessed, and protective of his people. And this is why I think Moses is the perfect nominee for the Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Welcome. Let me tell you about my Hall of Fame nominee. Being considered one of the greatest Dutch painters to ever live is pretty good for an artist that only painted the three art styles, landscape, figure, and still, for only a decade. Vincent was born the eldest of 6 children, and later, at 16, was apprenticed to an art dealing company, disliking art dealing. After that, he worked as a missionary, bookseller, and language teacher in Belgium, and in the winter of 1880 he experienced his first great spiritual moment, living among the poor. During this, he gave away all his worldly goods. Also, he started his artistic career, which would lead him to be one of the greatest Dutch post-impressionists to ever live. In his first 4 years, he experienced with oil paint, and he painted with watercolors. Then he moved to Paris, where he met many French painters. Their inspiration would last him his life. After that, he made his first masterpieces. It had a great influence on modern art. Sadly, Vincent van Gogh took his own life, but the beauty of his art lived on. Vincent had 4,000 sketches and paintings altogether, and was an inspired and enthusiastic artist. This is why I think Vincent van Gogh should be nominated to the Hall of Fame.
Welcome, and let me tell you about my Hall of Fame nominee, Princess Diana. Diana was born in 1961 at a park house in Norfolk, England. Diana was born with the last name Spencer, and the Spencers had been a rich and powerful family for centuries. She started her formal education at Silfield Private School in Kingsland, Norfolk, and soon moved to Riddlesworth Hall, an all-girls boarding school near Thetford when she was 9. She joined her sisters at West Heath Girls' School in Sevenoaks, Kent in 1973. Lady Diana Spencer married the Prince of Wales at St. Paul's Cathedral on July 29, 1981, and had her first child, Prince William, on June 21st, and her second child, Prince Harry, on September 15th. Although the princess was renowned for her style and closely associated with the fashion world, she was best known for her charitable work. During her marriage, the princess was president or patron of over 100 charities, and also became very close friends with celebrities including Michael Jackson and Elton John. She also let her children wear normal clothes such as baseball caps and t-shirts. Diana soon became one of the most fascinating and attractive people alive. Diana once said, "Anywhere I see suffering, that is where I want to be, doing what I can." And this is why I nominate Princess Diana to the Hall of Fame. Thank you for coming.
Welcome. Let me tell you about my Hall of Fame nominee, Ulysses S. Grant. Did you know Ulysses never wanted to join the Army, and he only went to West Point because his dad wanted to? But in the end, he became the commanding general of the Union Army, and was one of the main reasons the Union Army won. He was elected the 18th President of the United States in 1869 and again in 1873. Ulysses was born on April 27, 1822 in Pleasant, Ohio. He moved to Georgetown, Ohio when he was 1 year old. He loved horses and was good at math. When he was 17 years old, he went to West Point because his dad wanted to. After graduating from West Point, he served in the Mexican-American War. After serving in the Mexican-American War, he joined the Union Army to fight in the Civil War. After many victories, he became the commanding general of the Union Army. He ended the war when he got General Robert E. Lee of the Confederate Army to surrender. As president, he helped protect the rights of newly freed African Americans. He also signed the 15th Amendment of the Constitution, which gave African American men the right to vote. As you can see, Ulysses S. Grant deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He deserves it because as president, he helped protect the rights of newly freed African Americans. He also deserves it because as general of the Union Army, he was one of the main reasons the General Army won. And lastly, thank you for coming to tell you why I think Ulysses S. Grant should be in the Hall of Fame.
My name is Paige, and I'm nominating Florence Nightingale into the Hall of Fame. Did you know that in the mid-1800s, hospitals used to be filled with rats and trash and that there's no furniture or places to cook? Well, hospitals used to be unsanitary and a dreadful place to stay. That was until one nurse who's kind, gentle, and skilled changed hospitals and made them clean and comfortable. Florence saw healing in a whole new way. She made many positive changes to hospitals for the better and never gave up. Florence discovered her passion at a young age. She believed she heard the voice of God telling her to become a nurse. This led to her helping at many hospitals and even in the Crimean War. The first hospital she worked at was the Caresworth Hospital. It had poor sanitation and many diseases that spread from patient to patient quickly. Florence helped improve the hospital and was admired for her efforts. When she heard of the bad conditions at the war and that there were almost no nurses, she traveled to the war site to help. Later on, she was nicknamed the Lady with a Lamp because she went from patient to patient visiting them while holding a lamp. Florence also won many awards such as Order of Merit, Freedom of the City of London, and Royal Red Cross. She also wrote a book called Notes on Nursing, and there's a Nightingale training school named after her for young nurses. Florence dedicated her whole career to healing. She made many positive changes to hospitals, from visiting patients with a lamp to helping heal soldiers in battle. Florence was kind, gentle, skilled, and definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Humanity has won its battle. Gilbert de Mortimer Marquis de Lafayette was honored with the Golden Sword after he came back to France. He was a great man with great courage and deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. As a child, though he was rich, he was faced with many hardships, including his father dying when Lafayette was only 3 and his mother and grandmother soon after. At the age of 14, he joined the battles to avenge his father. At the age of 19, he moved to America to fulfill his dream and turn against his own country. He led troops into the Battle of Brandywine on September 11, 1777. He was shot in the leg and brought to a private medic stand by George Washington himself. What a great birthday present. He led troops into Canada during the battles of Valley Forge. During the battles of Valley Forge, Lafayette was ordered to lead a full-scale invasion on Quebec, Canada. Even though the invasion would fail in only 1 hour, it still takes great courage to invade such a big city like that. After the war, he came home to France in 1799, and to his surprise, he came home to a child. He decided his name would be George Washington de Lafayette. He was honored with the Golden Sword many years later. He died of pneumonia on May 20th, 1834. He was a great man with great courage and deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Hi, I'm Sophia. Welcome. Let me tell you about my Hall of Fame nominee, Jim Henson. Jim Henson was born on September 24th, 1936. He was born and raised in Greenville, Mississippi. Jim Henson's most famous quote is, "Life is like a movie. Write your own ending. Keep believing, keep pretending." Jim was most famous to the Muppets, The Dark Crystal, Sesame Street, Fraggle Rock, The Muppet Magazine, and Sam and Friends. The Muppets also appeared on The Tonight Show and The Ed Sullivan Show. Jim was a big success in life. His shows and films were for all ages. The American puppeteer and filmmaker Jim Henson passed away on May 16, 1990. Even though he is no longer with us, his creations and his legacy shall be remembered in the Hall of Fame. Thank you for coming.
Welcome to my Hall of Fame nominee, Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is probably one of the most famous engineers in the world, but did you know he was dyslexic? Even though through his hard challenges with reading, did not stop him from his many accomplishments. Steve Jobs grew up in California, was adopted by a loving family. His dad was a machinist. At the age of 19, Steve Jobs had the idea of communicating with people in a different way. At the age of 24, Steve Jobs made the first home computer. This determination and the fact that he liked to break rules motivated him to keep working on his goals. Steve Jobs changed the world with iPhones, computers, and the Apple Company. This is why I chose Steve Jobs to be in the Hall of Fame.
Welcome. Let me tell you about my Hall of Fame nominee, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She once said, "Fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you." Ruth Bader Ginsburg believed that everybody deserves a fair chance. Ginsburg was part of the government as one of the 9 U.S. Supreme Court members. In addition to that, she was the second woman to ever become a U.S. Supreme Court member and the first ever Jewish woman to become a U.S. Supreme Court member. That is why I know Ruth Bader Ginsburg should be nominated for this year's Hall of Fame. As a child, Ruth was not very successful. Her favorite books were Nancy Drew, and before she graduated from college, she had to pass the driver's test. She took it 5 times before she passed. Being well-educated really helped out Ruth while her career was forming. One of the most famous things she ever fought for was a bathroom. In the U.S. Supreme Court room, there was no women's restroom until Ruth pointed it out. As you can see, this is why I know Ruth Bader Ginsburg should be nominated for this year's Hall of Fame. Her great accomplishments led her to doing great things, like being the second woman to ever become a U.S. Supreme Court member and the first ever Jewish woman to become a U.S. Supreme Court member. That is why I know Ruth Bader Ginsburg should be nominated for this year's Hall of Fame.
7 major awards weren't given to him for nothing. Born in the 1820s, Louis Pasteur saw problems and decided to fix them. Thankfully, he had a brilliant mind and extreme determination that saved millions of lives with his discoveries in science. His displays of persistence and amazing ingenuity is why Louis Pasteur must be entered in the Hall of Fame. Growing up, Louis was a shy kid in a very challenging time. Many people were getting sick from epidemic diseases, and with filthy hospitals, they had no ways to cure them. He did not love college and often got homesick, but still studied as hard as he could. He enjoyed studying science, which is where he got his love for microbiology. He then developed a fascination for chemistry. After college, Louis became interested in all types of fermentation. He studied why juice and alcohol turn sour, and while studying that, made a startling discovery. He was examining some juice when he realized that yeast was actually composed of living cells, which led to him inventing fermentation for good alcohol. Next, he saw the problem with milk being contaminated with diseases and decided to try to tackle the problem. With many attempts, he invented a process now known as pasteurization to make milk and other drinks safe. One day when he was experimenting, he discovered that when animals were injected with a small amount of a germ, they did not die from an illness, which led to him inventing a cure for rabies. He also invented cures for diseases including cholera, anthrax, and swine fever. Nicknamed the father of germ theory, Louis Pasteur was an amazing scientist who revolutionized chemistry. He made hundreds of discoveries and was one of the best-known scientists in his lifetime. That's why I nominate Louis Pasteur to the Hall of Fame.
Welcome to the Hall of Fame. Do you know who Thomas Edison is? If you don't, here's some information. Thomas Edison's family was poor, but that did not stop him from getting a good education from his mother. As a child, he was curious to find out about the world around him. He even went about it like a scientist. Thomas Edison invented the photograph. The way he invented it was he sat down and did some rough sketches, then went off to build. In 1880, Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Edison quit his job because he wanted to spend time inventing. He made 1,093 patents. He wasn't easily discouraged because his first invention was not wanted by the public. Edison was a big thinker because he not only invented the light bulb, he invented a tower electric lighting system that supported a city. Thomas Edison's many inventions have had positive impacts on our lives today.
Hi, do you ever wondered who created the vaccine for tuberculosis and created the 3 laws of physics and discovered gravity? Well, Isaac Newton did. This is why he should be nominated into the Hall of Fame. Newton's dad was a farmer, but he sadly died 3 months prior Newton was born. Newton didn't have many friends, but he became highly respected through his many discoveries and popular. Newton loved school, especially math and science. He wondered why apples fell, why water dripped, and why when his brother punched him, he got knocked back. This led him to the discovery of gravity. Newton was known as legendary. Also, he is known as one of the greatest scientists who ever lived. This is why he should be nominated into the Hall of Fame.
Welcome to our Hall of Fame nominee, Franklin D. Roosevelt. I think Franklin Roosevelt should be in the Hall of Fame because of the challenges he faced to make him a great leader. Growing up, he loved horseback riding, sailing, and football. After boarding school, he attended Harvard University, where he met his future wife, Eleanor Roosevelt. In his final years with Harvard, he was president of the college newspaper Crimson. After graduating from Harvard, he realized he really enjoyed politics, so he ran for the state Senate of New York. Serving as senator, he was struck with devastating news. He developed polio. Polio is a disease that can paralyze you. Roosevelt was paralyzed from the waist down. This wasn't going to set him back from his goal of presidency. With the support of friends and family, he ran against former President Herbert Hoover. He won this election. This was the start of the longest presidency ever. Roosevelt was president during the Great Depression. This was a time frame when a lot of people were losing their money. What he was known for was making 15 laws in less than 100 days to help with the Great Depression and improve the economy. He also served at the beginning of World War II, but sadly died before it ended. To many, Roosevelt was a great leader, and to hear about his death saddened the country. That's why I nominate him for the Hall of Fame.
Louise Lumsden is best known for inventing girls lacrosse, but more importantly, she is also a pioneer for female education. She was born on December 31st, 1840 in Aberdeen, Scotland. At a young age of only 12, her dad died and her mom moved away temporarily. If it wasn't for her courageous efforts to create equality for female education, the game of lacrosse wouldn't exist today. Lumsden founded the game of lacrosse, a popular sport played by both men and women today. She was the first of 5 people to be taught at a well-known high school. Lumsden assured that no woman's talents would be left unnoticed. This is why Louise Lumsden should be part of this year's Hall of Fame, because she was an inspiration to girls all across the world.
Welcome. Let me tell you my Hall of Fame nominee, Milton Hershey. Did you know Milton and his wife booked 2 tickets on the Titanic, but had to cancel their trip last minute for unknown reasons? Milton's life was sensational to many people, not just because of the invention of his candy company. He had a school for orphan boys, a theme park named after him, and this was all made in his own town, Hershey, Pennsylvania. What led to Milton's success was he started learning about sweets from Joseph R. Roy at age 15. 11 years later, he started the Lancaster Caramel Company. Then, work began on Hershey, Pennsylvania, where his theme park, factories, and school for orphan boys still exist today. In 1918, Milton made $60 million in sales and decided to put it onto the Hershey School Trust Fund. As you can see, Milton Hershey should be nominated in this year's Hall of Fame because of his various accomplishments.
Welcome. Let me introduce you to my 2023 Hall of Fame nominee, Sacagawea. Think about this. You were only 16 years old when you asked to join the exploration that is now called the Lewis and Clark Expedition. What would you do? Well, Sacagawea was given this opportunity and she said yes. Little did she know she was going to make history. Sacagawea grew up on a rocky mountain that is now in the state of Idaho. Sacagawea's family, including her, were part of the Shoshone tribe. The tribe was in peace until one day when their enemy tribe came and attacked. They kidnapped Sacagawea and changed her life forever. Sacagawea was taken to a trade center and traded to a Canadian/French man named Toussaint Charbonnet. Toussaint Charbonnet was the one who brought Sacagawea to Lewis and Clark for help on the expedition. They wanted her to be the entrepreneur guide. The Sacagawea said yes. The whole reason for the expedition was to explore the new land the country had bought. Sacagawea helped the men identify edible roots and plants because they were often hungry. She was also the guide, meaning she would show them where to go and how to get to their destination at the Pacific Ocean. Sacagawea was also a translator because neither Luce or Clark knew how to speak the native language. As you can see, Sacagawea was a remarkable young woman, and through her patience, reliability, and knowledge, she was able to help the United States explore the new territory they had purchased. Even today, we remember Sacagawea by having her face on our dollar coin. It is an honor to recommend Sacagawea into our 2023 Hall of Fame.
Welcome. Let me tell you about my Hall of Fame nominee, Krista McAuliffe. Would you go to space if you're not a trained astronaut? This is exactly what Krista did. Krista grew up in Massachusetts and was very smart. She graduated from college and later earned a master's degree in education. In 1970, she started teaching. During her teaching career, President Reagan wanted a teacher to go to space. Krista was brave and applied. She got chosen out of 10,000 people. She had to do 5 months of challenging training to prepare for Spaceship Challenger. She also had to prepare 2 lessons to teach in space. Finally, it was January 28, 1986, the day of the launch, and everybody had their TVs on. Sadly, 73 seconds into the launch, the spaceship exploded. As you can see, Krista McAuliffe deserves to be in the Hall of Fame because she was the first citizen to go to space. She said, "Imagine a history teacher making history." She was brave and showed amazing courage. Maybe one day you can step out of your comfort zone and try something new.